What is up, everybody? Welcome to the 8th episode of the Life Hack Podcast, Bite Size Wisdom. It's been a minute since my last episode. I am so sorry. Work gets crazy, life gets crazy, but I am back, and today we're talking about something that's become such a huge problem, and that's people who mistake arrogance for strength, who think that just because they can talk down to somebody or win a argument that somehow makes them powerful. But the truth is, that's not strength, that's just an illusion and a cheap way to feel superior without actually improving anything in their own lives. Look around and you'll see it everywhere. People don't want real conversations anymore. They want to destroy the other side. They're not, nobody's interested in learning, growing, or even just agreeing to disagree. They just want to feel like they're on the right team. And instead of putting in real work, getting stronger, building discipline, taking care of their families, and trying to become financially independent, they waste their time trying to score points on meaningless conversations. But here's the thing, none of that changes anything. Winning an argument doesn't make you better. Tearing somebody down doesn't make you stronger. All it does is distracts you from the work you should be doing. Real strength doesn't come from proving yourself right. It comes from discipline, responsibility, and actually building something meaningful. So today we're breaking all of this down, why people engage in intellectual sabotage and why they'd rather attack than listen. And most importantly, what actually builds real, lasting strength. Because at the end of the day, strength isn't found in words, it's found in actions. So thanks, guys, for listening, and let's get into it. Right. So, you ever notice how some of the weakest people, the ones who don't actually do anything to improve themselves, are usually the loudest? The ones that make excuses talking about how the world's just too hard to navigate. It's like they think they're superior because they pick a side, as if repeating the same political slogan over and over again somehow makes them strong. And, let me be real, I know this mindset firsthand because I used to be one of those people. I used to argue in the comment section all the time. I thought I was making some kind of a difference by proving people wrong or calling them out on their ignorance. But the truth is, I wasn't making a bit of difference. And I was at my worst when I was doing that. I was constantly looking for an argument, constantly irritated, and honestly, I was just unhappy. Because when you spend a lot of your time researching and trying to win arguments instead of winning in real life, you're setting yourself up for failure. And I see it all the time, especially, nowadays. People convince themselves that being able to argue well or shut someone down means they're intelligent or strong. But let's really think about it. How many successful, disciplined, and mentally strong people do you see arguing online all day? The people actually building something, working on themselves, and pushing forward in life. They don't have time to sit in the comment section all day. They're busy working, training, learning, and growing. The ones that waste their lives, their time on endless debates, and they're always in the comment section and always hitting the share, 9 times out of 10, they're unhappy, stagnant, and just using those arguments as a distraction from their own problems. But here's the part that really messes me up when I realized it. I wasn't even debating people because I cared about the conversation. I was debating people because it gave me an excuse to avoid improving and improving myself and actually do something fulfilling. I was it was easy to argue. It was easy to think I'm, smarter than these idiots. Than to look in the mirror and admit I wasn't where I wanted to be and I needed to do more to prove myself. And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're hiding behind this illusion of intelligence instead of putting in real work that actually can make a difference. Somebody can actually look at you and say, I want to listen to what that person says. Here's another hard truth. Most people don't even believe half of what they're arguing about. They just say it because that's what their side says, because it's comfortable. Weak minded people don't actually think for themselves. They repeat party lines, parrot their favorite influencers, and stick to their echo chambers because it's easier than challenging their own beliefs. Actually listening to different perspectives, actually questioning what they think they know, that takes real strength. That takes confidence. But the second you step outside that box, the second you try to think for yourself, these same people turn on you because they don't want conversations. They want loyalty only to their side, and that's what makes them weak. That's they'd rather blindly commit to a group than be individually strong. The moment I realized I was just another pawn in the outrage machine was the moment my life started really improving. I stopped arguing just to argue. I stopped needing to win conversations. And I started really focusing on what actually mattered: my health, my family, my business, and my growth. And guess what? My life got a lot better. I even care more about people individually. I became happier when I decided I wasn't going to hit a share button all the time or every idea, argue every idea when I could find common ground. I had more peace because real strength isn't about debating, it's about building. But most people will never get there. They'll stay stuck, waste their time and energy on arguments that don't change anything. And when they wonder why they feel miserable all the time and feel like the world's out to get them, you know, if you feel stuck, you constantly irritated, ask yourself, am I actually improving my life, or am I just arguing and hoping that makes me feel better about where I am? Because all of that energy you're wasting on these debates that could be used to get in shape, start a business, and improve your relationships or just build something meaningful. You can't do both. You either waste your energy arguing or you invest on getting better. So, why are people on both sides so miserable? Look around. People are angrier, more depressed, and more insecure than ever. You would think, with all the access we have to information, opportunity, and self improvement, people would be absolutely thriving now. But the reality is they're not. And you know why? It's because instead of working on themselves, they've convinced themselves that being right is more important than being better. People don't want to face their own weaknesses, so they cover them up by joining a side and making everybody else the enemy. Instead of improving, they get their validation from tearing other people down. Instead of putting in effort to be stronger, healthier, and more disciplined, they put their energy into arguing, obsessing over politics, and repeating whatever their echo chamber tells them to. and it's destroying them. Because here's the thing, fake superiority comes at a cost. When you spend your time and your life obsessing over proving other people wrong instead of proving yourself right, you become mentally exhausted, bitter, and constantly unsatisfied. A strong person can say, I was wrong. A weak person can't. That's the real reason people cling so hard onto their side, even when it makes no sense. Admitting they are wrong feels like a personal attack. They don't have the confidence to take the hit, so instead they double down and pretend they're always right. This is why you see so many people arguing with zero intention of learning anything. They don't want a conversation, they want a victory. They want to win the debate so they can walk away like they're smarter, like they've owned somebody. It's not about truth, it's all about ego. But here's the ugly part, living that way slowly destroys you. Because when your whole identity is based on always being right, always shutting people down, and always proving how smart you are, you stop growing. You get stuck in the same cycles, have the same debates with the same people, and the worst part is you never actually improve your own life. You ever notice how the most miserable, stressed out people are usually the ones who argue the most? It's not a coincidence. When your brain is constantly in this debate mode, it wears you down and it makes you more anxious, more on edge, and more defensive. You're never at peace because all all you do is feel like you're in a battle. And for what? A few likes on a comment, a meaningless win over a stranger on the internet. Meanwhile, the people actually winning in life are, building businesses, taking care of their families, and improving themselves. While you're sitting there wasting your energy on pointless arguments that don't change anything. Let me put it to you like this: the person obsessing over owning the other, political opponent isn't getting in shape. The person ranting all day about how dumb the other side is isn't making more money. The person constantly arguing online isn't happy. And the person that constantly is hitting that share button is just living in their echo chamber. They might pretend like they're happy and they have it figured out. They might act like they are superior, but deep down they know they're just miserable. Here's the harsh truth: the need to prove your superiority isn't actually a sign of strength, it's a sign of weakness. Strong people don't need to prove anything. They just live their lives, do the work, and let the results speak for themselves. But weak people, they need constant validation. They need to feel like they're smarter, more enlightened, more on the right side of history, because without that, they would actually have to look at their own lives. And most people don't want to do that because, what would they see? A person who's out of shape most of the time, a person who's stuck in the same place they were 5 years ago. I see this all the time. Or a person who just wastes their time fighting with people online instead of fixing their own problems. You know, and the second they start to feel insecure, their insecurities creeping in, what do? They jump back into another argument because arguing distracts them. It makes them feel like they're doing something even when they're doing nothing at all. I know this all because I lived this. This was totally me. I feel this way about how I was about myself 100%. I spent so much time trying to prove, I was smarter than people, arguing just to argue, thinking I was making some kind of impact, but all it was making me angry. I was exhausted and I just felt like I was stuck. The moment I stepped back and stopped wasting my time on these fake battles, my life changed. I started actually improving, even mindset. I started focusing even more on my health, my business, my relationships. And instead of feeling frustrated all the time, I actually felt peace. Because here's what most of people don't get: you don't have to prove yourself to anybody. You don't have to argue. You don't have to fight meaningless battles. You don't have to waste your energy on people who will never change. What you do have to do is you have to get better. You have to work on yourself, and you have to build something real, because that's what actually makes you strong. When people engage in intellectual sabotage, it's not because they're interested in the truth. It's because they're weak. They're not interested in engaging in thoughtful conversations. They don't want to entertain new ideas or challenge their own. What they want is power, superiority, and the comfort to stay exactly who they are in their little bubble without having to confront anything that might make them question their own beliefs. It's easy to just discredit somebody who doesn't agree with you than it is to actually have a real conversation. It's easy to, you know, make somebody look like somebody that they're not, or to label them informed or brainwashed, than it is to really listen to their point of view and admit, just maybe, there's something to learn. The goal is never progress with these people. It's winning. The goal is to come out on top, to come out as the one with the loudest voice, the sharpest words, and the ability to shut people down and not to hear them out. Most people who engage in this type of intellectual sabotage don't want to grow. They want to preserve their current worldviews and their current comfort. If they engage in real debate, they might be forced to look at their own biases and blind spots. And that's just a scary thought. It's much easier to call somebody ignorant or brainwashed than it is to ask yourself, am I actually wrong here? They use labels as shields: evil, ignorant, brainwash. These are terms they throw out to protect themselves. When somebody challenges their ideas, it's not just difference of opinion, it's an existential threat to their comfort zone. To face the possibility that they might have been wrong all along, that's terrifying. So instead of engaging with your ideas, they choose to personally attack you, to tear you down, because it's easier than confronting the uncomfortable possibility that maybe you don't have all the answers. What's more, they'll never say it to your face. They'll type it, in their angry comments, spew hatred and insults behind the safety of their screen, but in person, they'll shrink. They avoid confrontation because the keyboard warrior persona they've built doesn't translate into real life courage. It's all illusion. It's their strength is fake, their confidence is a facade. In the real world, where accountability and authentic people matter, they're weak. This is the world of intellectual sabotage, where ideas aren't debated in good faith, but destroyed for the sake of comfort and ego. And that's a dangerous place for society to be in, because without open and honest debate, there's no growth. And without growth, we're all just stagnated. Real strength isn't something you achieve by making people look bad online or engaging in pointless debates with strangers. Strength comes from inner discipline, self-responsibility, and the ability to focus on what actually matters, and not shallow victories on social media arguments. The strength you see in the true leaders, a successful entrepreneur, or a person that's getting their life together, it's a result of personal growth. It's all earned. It's not manufactured in the comment section. Discipline is the core of real strength. It's about doing what's hard and necessary even when nobody is watching. It's about showing up every day, whether it's for your job, your health, or your personal growth. It's about making tough decisions, being consistent, and building habits that push you forward one day at a time. When you have discipline, you don't need to worry about winning an argument, because you've already won the most important battle in your life. You've earned the respect of yourself and the others through your actions and not just your words. Most importantly, real strength comes from focusing on what matters to you and not getting caught up with this noise of the online bickering. When people waste time fighting in the section, they're missing out on building the life they want. Imagine if they use the same energy to improve their health, build relationships, or grow a business, instead of engaging in empty, soul draining debates. They could be strengthening their bodies, minds, and their futures. When you focus on your own growth, you become stronger in every aspect of your life. That's what truly matters. Real strength isn't found in words, it's found in actions. Instead of spending your time trying to convince strangers online that you're right, you could be building something that matters. In the end, the strongest people are the ones who focus on their own life, their own family, and their own goals, not tearing other people's down or trying to prove a point in the comment section. All right. So the truth is, I've always cared a lot about people, maybe more than I should at times. It's not just telling people what they want to hear or making things sound nice. I care enough to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And honestly, sometimes that's been a flaw of mine. Sometimes it's really hard to do even this podcast because of how people might receive it and what they'll think about what I have to say. Because not everybody is ready for the truth. Some people just want to stay in their bubble, surrounded by comfort and convenience. But, here's the thing: if I didn't care, I wouldn't say a damn thing. If I didn't care, I would just keep quiet and let people just continue on their path, believing their own lies. But that's just not me. I'm not here to let people sit in their own misery when I know they can do better. Some people hate hearing the truth. It forces them to look at their own life and ask themselves, am I actually doing what's necessary? And that's the real reason why most people resist the truth, because it forces them to confront the reality of their own actions or lack thereof. I get it, it stings, it stings me too. It's uncomfortable to face the things we don't want to admit. But if you're serious about getting better, about actually improving, you need to hear the hard stuff. And I'm okay with being the person to say it. I'd rather be the one who makes you uncomfortable, who challenges you, or who pushes you to think critically than be the one that lets you drown in weakness. Because when you truly care about people, you don't let them stay stuck in mediocrity. You help them any way you can. I care enough to tell you what you need to hear, even if it's not what you want to hear. All right. So we've been through a lot this episode. We've talked about the weakness, we often don't see in ourselves, how social media keeps us trapped in a cycle of false validation, and how we need to break free from it all. We're all guilty of wasting time, getting caught up in distractions and looking for the easy way out. But the truth is, nothing worthwhile comes from your comfort zone. You have to step out, you have to put in work, and face uncomfortable truths head on if you want to grow. I've always cared about people, even when it's been to my own detriment. I've said things that were hard to hear because I want everybody to be better, but I can't want it more than you do. You're the one that has to take control and make the decision. You're the one that has to, decide, will you keep wasting your time in your echo chamber, or will you start understanding life isn't about outrage and trying to take cheap shots at people with opposing views? All right. So that is the end of the episode. At the end of the day, real strength isn't found in debates, arguments, or just proving somebody wrong. It's found in the way that you live your life every day, in the discipline you build, and the actions that you take to improve yourself. The people who spend their time trying to tear others down, they're not winning anything. They're just avoiding their own reality. But if you actually want to be strong, if you want to build something that actually lasts, you have to stop wasting energy on things that don't matter and start putting the energy into your own growth. So ask yourself, are you going to spend your time on things that actually make you better, or are you going to just chase empty victories? Because the truth is, the strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones putting in the work, showing up, and proving themselves through action. All right. I'm going to stop there. Thanks always, guys, for all of your support. If this resonates with you at all, leave a comment, hit that like button, and please subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks.